Let's take a breath together. So let me just start at the end and then we'll circle back. As many of you know, I was candidating for the senior minister opening at CSL San Jose. And I want to tell you that I am staying right here. And this whole talk this morning, just the title, Failing Forward. And what I really want to focus on this morning is the whole idea of failure, is the whole idea of living these principles that we teach and how excruciatingly, mind-numbingly easy it is to mindlessly get in our own way. that is the automatic activity of being human. It just is. And to invite us to stop making it bad or wrong, to really embody our humanity and our spirituality as one in the same. Ernest Holmes, in the Glossary of the Science of Mind, A Philosophy of Faith, A Way of Life, defines the ego as the spirit in human form. And perhaps we can understand the ego definition that Freud used, and we can understand that we are divinity in human form. That those two things don't have to be separate. that there's no benefit in smashing. And to do so, perhaps to vilify creation itself, is to say that this human expression is somehow a mistake. Really? There's too many of us for it to be a mistake. Mistakes just kind of happen and they're one-offs, right? We have an entire planet of mistakes, if that's true. So I submit to you that perhaps this human expression is intentional, is divine, and it's as glorious as we allow it to be. So I want to share with you, and I have to flip through my notes because I learned Thursday evening about the decision in San Jose, and it's just like this waterfall of stuff has been downloading, so I have pages and pages of stuff. I have to keep flipping through to find it. That's what's happening up here. So when we think about failing forward, first of all, let's look at the idea of failure. Most of us define failure as a negative thing, and perhaps it's simply the process of learning. Perhaps. When we were babies in this physical body, the first time we tried to stand up, we failed. We didn't stop trying to stand up. The first time we crawled, we failed. We didn't stop crawling, right? The first time we tried to sit up, we failed. We didn't stop trying to sit up. And so perhaps failure is an integral, necessary part of success. That they are not opposites. That maybe, just like sorrow and celebration, they're flip sides of the same coin. Right? Flip sides of the same coin. You can't have one without the other. Right? I found this definition of failing forward that I really like. The concept of failing forward is not a new one. It's simply a way to describe a leaning into our failures or challenges and using them as a learning tool to continue growing. What if that? What if every time we experience a failure, we meet it? Freaking! Yeah. Now I know where to go. What if we did that? Instead of, what's wrong with me? My inadequacies all jump up, and trust me, these talks, they don't come out of books, they come out of my mirror. Right? It was so immediate and so easy, effortless, that my first thought was, what's wrong with me? Why don't they want me? And the glorious part of having a solid spiritual practice is right behind that came, oh, shut up. And I actually laughed because I wasn't sure, because the "oh, shut up" was out loud, and I was like, had I logged off the Zoom meeting? Because I hope they didn't think that was directed at them. Because I was in my office at home all by myself, and I what's wrong with me? Why don't they want me? Oh, shut up. And it was just like that. It's not that they don't want me. That's not it. God chose God. See, when we can't say it's all God and then have all of these little carve-outs that are something other than God. Stop lying. Stop it. Pick one and be honest about it. And so the reality of it is, God interviewed God an ungodly amount of times. And God chose the best version of itself to lead its community into its next iteration of itself. That's what happened. That's what happened. But here's what happens in the human realm. We get mixed up in this law of attraction, right? And I want to use the analogy of the light and the moth, right? We get mixed up. We think we're the moth. We're being pulled to the light. We're never going to manifest our calling when we do that. We're the light. The way the law of manifestation works is we have to become the light. We have to stop being the moth and be the light that attracts the desire of our heart into manifestation in our life. It's so easy to go to, how dare you dangle this in front of me and then not give it to me? Now, when we do that, we personified God. Right? God is now a person that did something to us. And so now we are on the villain, victim, hero triangle. We've made ourselves a victim of God, who is now our villain. Really? That's not what we practice. And I don't believe for 1 minute that it's even possible. That's the old God that I walked away from that sends people to hell. I don't believe that God sends itself to hell. I don't believe that. I believe that hell is created in my own thoughts when I separate myself from it. And I say it because it helps me anchor into God is all there is. When I give God a he or a she or a they, when I give it a personified version, well, what about the grains of sand? What about the snowflakes? What about the grass? What about all the squirrels in my yard that all have the same universal name, Max? They do. Deborah will tell you, I talk to them all. I call them all Max. I don't know where they came from. Right. But God, if God is all there is, God is the chair you're sitting in. God is the floor you have your feet on. God is the shoes you have on your feet. So for me, it makes more sense for God to be an it, because then it doesn't have a personality, and I can't blame it. Right? I blame people. I have never once seen the grass for growing my yard. I have never once blamed anything other than another human being. Never. Right? Even when it rains and something gets wet, I don't blame the rain for getting something wet that should have been covered up. I blame myself or Deborah. And I'm smart enough, I've been married long enough that I know, just blame yourself. Just cut to the chase, blame yourself, own it, and be done. Because I'm smart that way. Right? We have to get beyond, this. We teach a philosophy of faith, a way of life. And I'm going to challenge each of us. Let's learn the philosophy. And let's keep learning the philosophy. And let's keep learning the philosophy. Because I'm here to tell you, I've been studying it for a long time. I am immersed in it every day. I still need to study it. It is so simple and yet so elusive. Why? Because I am equally immersed in condition. And here's the problem with condition. It's not even a problem. It's an opportunity. Where did I go with that? Sometimes my conditioned thinking tells me things that hurt. Sometimes my conditioned thinking tells me things that hurt. It doesn't tell me things that are true. It doesn't tell me things that are accurate. It tells me things that hurt. Because it tells me things in separation. Because all conditioning is separation. Right? Doesn't mean I deny conditioning. Doesn't mean I ignore it. It means I turn away from it. So what the heck does that mean? Well, I'm changing my language on some of this stuff, because Holmes wrote what he wrote in the time that he wrote it with the language that he had. I'm not interested in turning away from things. I'm interested in what am I turning to. Because to focus on what I'm turning away from keeps me focused on it. Right? And so all about turning back to principle. Principle, unchanging truth. Truth that is applied the same no matter who applies it. Principle works the same for Jared as it does for Valerie, as it does for Rev Lanny. It's like if we're all standing in a row in the rain, we all get wet. Right? The rain doesn't say, whoop, it's going to rain on Rev Lanny. We're not raining on Valerie today. And Jared, he's getting a whole lot of rain. That's not how it works. And that's not how principle works. Principle works the same. Principle is the impersonal part of what we teach. Principle is the activity of law. It works the same no matter who you are. It works differently based on how you use it. Okay? The principles of aerodynamics, they work the same for everybody that uses them, but they work differently depending on how you use them. Trust me, the laws of aerodynamics are different for a helium balloon than a 747. It's the same law of aerodynamics, but how it's being used is different. And so the faith part is beginning to play with how we're going to use it. And we build a faith muscle. Because you can't see principle. We see the effects of how we use principle. How we use it. How we're funneling it. How we're channeling it. Whatever analogy works for you. Here's what I can tell you. My calling has not changed. It has not changed. There was an opportunity to explore a section of the maze that looked like it would manifest in San Jose. And most of you have been aware of the process for a very short period of time. I've been in the process since February. When I say an ungodly number of interviews, I'm not kidding. It was easier to apply for a selected, sworn in the deputy and carry a gun and people go through this process. Right? That was their due diligence. Great. It doesn't mean anything failed. And just since Thursday at 4 p.m., I have gotten so much clarity, so much spiritual clarity, and reminded my job is the what. That's my job in consciousness, is to know the what, the how, the where, the when. None of my business. None of my business. That's the activity of law. That is principle and how it works on my what. So I want to share with you my what. Because right now in this moment, you are part of the how and the where and the when of my what. Because here I am and here you are. This is my what. To constantly, and hopefully I can get through this, because this is deep. To constantly become more of my authentic spiritual self by accepting 100% responsibility for every now of life unfolding itself as this physical expression of itself that I call me. My desire is to create, to experience an expansion of life as ministry, connection, and engagement. To share openly, authentically, and vulnerably. To live from love, from oneness, from an ever-expanding understanding and embodiment of principle. The changeless truth, the operation of truth. To embody and live the inclusion of oneness. That's who I am. That's the calling on this thing I call my life. And so, I just thought it poignant to show you who your minister is. And to be very clear that I have every expectation, every commitment for this to happen wherever I'm standing. Which means it's going to happen here. And I invite you to be an integral part of that. However you are called to be a part of it. Let's take this into prayer. Knowing in every fiber of my being that God is experiencing God. That God is speaking through God. That God is listening to God. That God is all there is. that it is perfect peace. It is perfect contentment. It is awe and wonder and joy and intelligence and abundance. It is all. Just all. And so I know, being created out of it, by it, to be it, that I am that. Gloriously individualized in this human form. That each one hearing the sound of my voice is that. And each one not hearing it is that. That every blade of grass, every grain of sand, every snowflake, every puff of wind, the infinite, exquisitely individualized as exactly a desire in the heart of the infinite itself. And so I speak my word, claiming and affirming that I release any barrier that would hinder my embodiment, that would hinder 100% responsibility for who I came here to be. I say yes. Yes to every glorious moment. Yes to every failure. Yes to every messy moment. Yes to the authenticity of this thing I call experience. Knowing that it is in the maze that grace operates and reveals the self with the capital S to the self with the little s. Yes. Cool. So grateful for the process. So grateful to be reminded that on the other side of every ouch is an amazing hallelujah. Yes. And so I celebrate. And I celebrate Sierra Center for Spiritual Living. And I celebrate Center for Spiritual Living San Jose. And I celebrate Reverend Rochelle McCrary, knowing that she is God being called to serve God's community in San Jose. I celebrate. And so with deep, deep gratitude, I invite you to anchor the word of the infinite spoken as your own, as we say together, and so it is.